Hello everyone, welcome back to the Mr. Flipwagen YouTube channel. I'm Mr. Flipwagen, but you can call me Mel. As you may have realized, I have largely moved on from creating content centered around World of Tanks, mostly because I quite frankly don't really play the game anymore. What has stuck with me though, or what still sticks with me, is the art of World of Tanks. The fact of the matter is that World of Tanks is just a very pretty game. All tanks and skins have their own unique features, and all the maps are set in different locations with different aesthetics. From the calm foresty outlooks of Serene Coast to the war-torn, destroyed city streets of Berlin. Each map also has its own different theme to accompany the map. But unlike most of the visual art, the music is often overlooked. Not because it's bad, but because you often only hear it at the start and mid to late game stages. So most people just tend to completely turn it off to listen to something else instead. And to be honest, that fact kind of saddens me a bit. So, I've decided to make a whole video dedicated to going through the top 10 best World of Tanks soundtracks. These are the music tracks that appear at the start or during a battle, so music like the World of Tanks main theme, as an example, doesn't count. These are map-specific tracks. Now bear in mind that this is like 99% my own opinion. A lot of us have different tastes, and that's okay. But I'd actually be very interested in seeing that what you guys think are the best soundtracks. Do you think that I rated something too high or too low, or was there something I missed or something I should completely get rid of? I'd be very interested to hear your opinion on this. If you also decide to take a serious listen to these, I'd recommend you actually use headphones, because they actually manage to capture a surprisingly big whole extra dimension of details and structure and feeling to the compositions. So yeah, and heck, just go and listen to the World of Tanks soundtrack. It's out there on YouTube. Listen to it. It's very good. And yeah, let's start the video off. These are the top 10 best World of Tanks soundtracks. Number 10, Nebelburg. Probably the most famous theme of the Grand Battle maps. This theme encapsulates the word grand perfectly. This theme is heroic, it's epic, it's large, yet it contains accents of fear and loss, and some calmer parts depict preparation and planning, with the crescendos being the strategy into commanding and commencing war. It's a very nice theme, the whole thing through, so I suggest you listen to the whole thing. It's all there, it's great. Number 9, Berg. A heavy, conflict-filled theme that's based on Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor. I love this theme, and it's one of the reasons I actually got into listening to classical music. And just like classical music, you have to wait a little bit to the best part. The slow build-up of trumpets and cymbals create a fast-paced and awesome climax. The worst part being that it just ends too soon. Number 8, Mountain Pass. This theme draws strong inspiration from the melodies and instrumentation from the Caucasus, and my god does it sound good. Throughout the whole track we get to hear a few different modes of music. It starts off as calm and ambient with vocals in the background, that suddenly gets interrupted by quick-paced Liskinka music, which then builds up into a more battle-like theme. It manages to do this without making the track jarring in any way. All in all, this theme describes the map, and the aesthetics, and, well, the fact that you're about to fight a battle, perfectly. Number 7, Hinterland. entry is a bit odd, because it feels overlooked by basically everyone, and same with the map in-game itself. I personally found this song to be one of the best compositions that's centered around a Soviet theme. It has deep, powerful moments, but also calmer and more somber ones. And the battle soundtrack also adds another layer of conflict into this already beautiful track. I actually like this track so much that I actually use it in my World of Tanks intros. A super underrated track, but that does not mean it's bad at all. Number 6. Karelia. This track is one of the most beautiful tracks in my opinion. The instrumentation is very unique and it feels very traditional to its location. The juice harp and the thunder noises in the background now and then is also a very nice touch. If you listen to the soundtrack, I recommend you listen to the whole thing, because the true climax actually appears during the battle music at the mid to late stages of the music track. All in all, Karelia is just a wonderful track to listen to, a beautiful piece, and it's worth being on this list. Enough said. Number 5. Pilsen. The map Pilsen in-game is set next to a tank factory producing tanks for the Germans, and the soundtrack perfectly mimics and uses noises like bells ringing and machines on full power in creating this soundtrack. But you can also hear vocals in the far distance. Vocals yearning for liberation from the German war machine. The combination of instruments and machines weave a very intense and beautiful piece of music. In the battle music you can even hear more traditional instrumentation. Perhaps a symbol and nod to the Czechs that would eventually rise up and take back their country. Number 4. Live Oaks. Holy crap, I have a love-hate relationship with this soundtrack, because it just hits like a truck. It starts off as, I guess, a Southern American country song filled with joy and happiness of life, and then suddenly you hear bombing, radio static and tank engines, and the reality of war hits. This track hits so hard that I temporarily get PTSD. This track reflects the harshness and tragedy of true war. How quickly everyday life could be stripped away from the common people. The people who live there. Everyday life was stripped from the Ukrainians a few months back. Almost a year back. This track is a reminder of how suddenly life as people live it goes from reality to a burning memory. And how all one may be left with is the hope that war will end. The hope that one will be able to get back to the lives that they once lived happily. World of Tanks is a war game after all, and it would be a bit disingenuous to only have tracks that completely ignore the tragedy and brutality of war. But luckily we have tracks like this, powerful and well composed. I originally wanted to put this in like the number 2 or number 3 spot, because I really feel it's that powerful, but I decided against it since the battle soundtrack in my opinion isn't that spectacular. The main star of the show is definitely the initial intro, and how the track goes from cheery and groovy to ominous and serious. But the fact that the intro alone conveys this extremely well is very impressive, and definitely a well-deserved spot in number 4. Number 3. Outpost. This soundtrack is, as of making of this video, the latest music track composed for a map, and I believe it's the only one that Andrius Klimka hasn't composed or assisted in making of on this list. Instead we have a new composer, Ivan Kusherenko, and he has made an excellent debut in World of Tanks as a composer for this track. The track also includes vocals and melody from the folk song Ederlesi, sung mainly by the Romani people from the Balkans. But many other people around the world listen and sing and enjoy it, and this war-torn orchestral version of it gives it a unique accent, a unique flavor. All in all, it's a beautiful track for a beautiful map, exploring folk music from the region it portrays, yet keeping the action-packed energy that a wargame like World of Tanks has. As a side note, for some extra credit, I recommend you go listen to Ederlesi from the movie Time of the Gypsies, because the song Ederlesi is a song worth respecting just like that alone. It has less orchestral elements and has a more folk music portrayal. And I found a perfect comment from one of the videos that, in my opinion, just sums up this track. I don't understand a single word, but I was singing it at work all day today. This song is magnificent. It has soul and speaks right to the heart. Also, these voices are out of this world. A masterpiece. Number 2. Berlin. As Live Oaks portrays the start of the conflict, Berlin perfectly portrays the end of it. The theme is heavy, deep, with loud bashing of instruments, almost mimicking artillery fire and bombing. Some moments slow down a bit and things become more somber and calm, but it's not long until you're thrown back into the fray again. Most of the theme is just chaotic like a city in tatters, and while the in-battle music suffers a little similarly to how Live Oaks does, it still doesn't suffer as much. You still have epic and deep moments, but it definitely feels more like in battle, roaming the destroyed city streets music, whereas the intro itself feels like the track you hear when you finally face the final boss. This theme is grand, and when one loaded into the Berlin map for the first time, one knew shit was getting real. A brilliant soundtrack portraying the final frontier of the Second World War. Before going to number 1, I wanted to list some honorable mentions. These are tracks that didn't make it to the list, mostly because they don't really qualify with the rules I set up for this ranking. I.e., these may be tracks from the old soundtrack or from different game events that don't exist in the game anymore, but they are still hidden gems I like listening to from time to time. Number 1. Stujanki. Stujanki is probably the most well-known of the soundtracks in game, and is usually hailed as the best soundtrack by most of the player base. Both the intro soundtrack and the battle music are worth listening to. This track was actually made with the help of the Polish folk band Świolak, and wow, do they make a difference. The instrumentation is phenomenal, like you can pick apart the song, hear what instruments play which parts, and the use of the male and female vocals is very fun too, with predominant singing by women, and then the chanting of men accompanying the instrumental parts. This song is like a layered treat you can deconstruct nicely. You can taste all the flavors separately, but all of them come together to create a phenomenal product as a whole. This track is also another track that's based on a folk song, this time Polish one obviously, named W moim ogrodesku, and I believe Studzianki as a map location was probably chosen as a nod to the Battle of Studzianki and the engagement between the Red Army and the Polish 1st Armor Brigade versus the Germans, and well, the battle was won by the former. This track symbolizes Poland liberating itself, taking back what was ripped from it at the start of the Second World War. It's a group effort, with both men and women doing all they can in the ways they have been assigned. It's a song about teamwork, liberation, and the tide of war itself turning. Besides, this tune is super catchy. It's all you could ever want, or at least all I could ever want. Which is why Studzianki happily crowns this list on the number 1 spot. Sadly, sometime before making this video, I read up that Andris Klimka, the composer for most of these tracks, doesn't work for Wargaming anymore, which saddens me a bit, since he brought all of these masterpieces to the game. Although, seeing as the Outpost track is such a banger, as the first track made by a different composer, I can't help but being curious to see what comes next. Maybe Ivan Kusherenko, along with other potential composers, will be able to carry on the legacy that Andris Klimka has left behind. And I hope that the future of World of Tanks soundtracks will be just as bright as its past has been. Anyway, that's all for this video. Do you agree or disagree with my ranking? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, that has been all for this video. I thank you guys so much for watching, and like, dislike, comment, whatever. Merry Christmas, by the way, and I'll see you all in the next video.